Okay? So chapter 2, lesson 4 is creating a simple drawing. And ultimately, the reason why you need a drawing, all right, for a lot of your parts, and please put your phones away, is because with communicating something graphically or visually, you're not just doing so just to, draw something up for yourself. Usually you're communicating it to somebody else. So you might be giving the drawing to somebody in a machine shop where they're going to produce the actual part, okay? And you may never have a real conversation with them. They're not going to go and read like a book on how to make the part. They're going to look at the drawing. They're going to see how big all the pieces are, and they're going to manufacture it precisely. All right? A lot of times, like we're going to actually manufacture something so that it has a very tight tolerance to it. All right? Like 1/10 of an inch or 100th of an inch. All right? Or maybe even 1,000th of an inch. Okay? So these drawings are really, really, really important. Okay? So with the stuff that you're building here in Inventor, what we're going to do is we're going to use what we call a drawing sheet. It's just a standard way of communicating your part sizes and other information that goes along with describing it. Okay? So the drawing sheet that I have up on the screen is the drawing sheet I'm going to have you guys use from now on, from this point forward. So, up on Classroom, all right, if I were to go to CAD 1 period 5, and you click on that most recent assignment that's up there. All right, I'm going to put this in front of you guys because I don't want you doing other stuff right now. I want you to do this one with me, okay? What we have is we have a puzzle case title block.idw. Okay? So, if, let's just say, you open up Inventor, and, I don't know, you open up the L block. Let me open up my L block here for a second. If I want to put this on a drawing sheet for class, and I want it to be the way you're instructed to do so, I want you to use this drawing sheet right here. I don't want you to use one of the Inventor drawing sheets. There are other drawing sheets that are in here. So I can simply go File, New, and I can make a drawing. All right? And you have a bunch of, pre-made drawing sheets that could work for you. Okay? For this class, and for me, for Mr. Kapler, I want you to use the one that's right here. Okay? So you literally just have to click on this file. You can download it. All right, and you can just open this right up in your project. So if you just click on it, we want to put that in your puzzle folder. So you had, I think, like in the documents, you had a CAD folder and then puzzle. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to put it right in there. Okay? And that's where it's going to go. All right? Now, once that drawing sheet's on your screen, it's really, really, really easy to create your drawing. There's a couple things you need to know about drawings, though. So I'm going to try to run through some of the, most standard content, the things that are, kind of like hypercritical. Okay? So when we show our parts off here on paper space, we want to follow certain conventions. Typically, number one, I have to identify the front view. All right? So the front view we talked about a little bit. It's the most descriptive view. It's the side that shows the most facets or the most details for your part. Okay? So if we're on that drawing sheet, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on, under my Place Views tab, I'm going to click on this little base tool. Alright? And the computer is going to automatically kind of find other files that are open. If you have a lot of other files open, you might not see the right one immediately. I only have one other part open. I have my L block open. So the computer automatically assumes I want to bring in my L block. And then it automatically assumes that we want to show it from the front view. So that's great stuff. If we don't see the part that we want, you can click on this little open button and you can go and you can load in any other part that you want. Okay, but we're only going to put one part on each drawing sheet. Okay, just to start with. The first part that I'm going to show you here is going to be the L block. Alright, and when I see that one part pop up on the screen, I'm just going to hit the OK button. Alright, and if you notice, the computer kind of switches out of like that graphics mode where it's showing everything with shaded colors and stuff, right? And it switches over to just what we would call like hidden line. So it's showing the outside edges of the part. These are what I would call object lines. They're lines that describe the object itself. Okay? And this is ultimately my base view. Okay? Now, from this point, I want to show a couple other views so that we can kind of figure out some more things about the part, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a projected view. Alright, so now that I have my base view, I'm going to project out a couple of other views that we need to help fully describe the part. So I have the front view, watch this, I'm going to click on projected, and now if I hover my cursor around the part, see how it kind of inherently finds these ulterior views that are going to help kind of describe what it's going to look like. And based on where I click on the screen, that view looks a little bit different. So stop doing other stuff for a second. Just look here real quick, right? So if I hover that projected view straight over top of the front view, I can click, and that is now placed in there. I can go over here to the right, and I can click. And now my right view is going to be created when I'm done with this. And then the last one I want to make, I want to do like a little 3D view up here in the upper right-hand corner. So I'm going to click up there, and you can kind of see where those views are going to live. Okay, but the computer might still think I'm going to put more views down. Well, I don't want to. I'm just going to right-click and now hit Create. Okay, and what we have now is what I would call an orthographic projection of that base view. So orthographic is just a term where you're looking at something straight on from the front. There's no perspective to it. When you take a picture with a camera, there's perspective. All right, like there's a vanishing point, there's a horizon line. Orthographic views have no perspective. I threw out a term, orthographic projection. All right, orthographic projection just describes when you're taking one view. Here, check this out, ready? I take my block here, and we're turning the view 90 degrees. So you're seeing that same exact view projected off of the front view, but we're seeing the top. Over here, we would kind of turn the part 90 degrees to the side. Okay? So right here I have these orthographic projections, and watch this. If I move the front view, you guys see how that top view goes with it? That's because those lines are all connected. Alright, back in the old days we had to do this by hand on a drafting board with T-squares and straight edges. You guys have the luxury of just kind of dragging and dropping parts right onto a sheet, and the computer figures it all out for you. Okay, but there is a connection between these views. So if I were to move that front view around, notice that it moves the top view and the side view. If I move the side view around, nothing really happens. I can kind of space it out a little bit, but that's it. That 3D view in the top is really the only view that's kind of disconnected from things. All right, and that one we can just kind of fit neatly on the paper space up here in the upper right-hand corner, and that would be sufficient. Okay, so as long as it's on there. Couple other things I don't want to do. I don't want object lines to cross over other object lines. Okay, so we want each of these views to kind of live by itself on the piece of paper. We don't want to have object lines overlap. We don't want to have views go off of the edge of the piece of paper, like the open space here, and onto the title block. Alright, that title block is there so that you can put on some textual information, so we have information about our project. We don't want that out there. We don't want it over the border. We don't want it off of the sheet. Okay, we want that stuff like kind of living in a little space here, an open space on the piece of paper. Okay? For your front view, your top view, and your right side view, these views can all be hidden line. Okay? The isometric view up here in the top right-hand corner, like this 3D view, it's a little bit easier to see things when it's all shaded and there's some color to it. Okay? So one thing I would like for you to do, if you hover your cursor over top of that view, check this out, ready? See that little red line that pops up?
Yeah.
When that red line is there, you can right-click and you can grab some properties for the view itself. And one of the properties on there says Edit View. And if you click on Edit View, it lets you change some of the drawing view properties. So there's one in here, one property that you can adjust for the style that lets you change kind of what you see here, and one of them actually lets you go to a shaded view, and the shaded view is going to put a little color on that sheet and makes that isometric view pop out. Okay? Last thing I need you to do, I need you to put some dimensions on this part. So if you go back to day one in here, back when we were working on drawing things, alright, creating simple parts, you had a worksheet that looked kind of like this. Alright, and there were dimensions on here. And most of the dimensions were given to you. There was a couple places where they kind of left a dimension off. And what happened when there was a dimension left off? You had to assume. And you know what they say about assuming?
It's not good.
It's not good. That's exactly what they say.
Oh.
All right? So if you assume a dimension, you could be right, and you could also maybe be off. So we assumed that some of the dimensions were like maybe 1 inch. But who knows? It could have been like 0.975 inches, or it could have been 0.99 inches. We don't really know. Okay? So we don't want other people to have to assume. So here's the game you're playing when you go to put dimensions on your sheet. Watch this. All right? We are going to click on the Annotate tab, and you're going to use the Dimension tool, all right, to place dimensions on your sheet. And you're going to go around your part, and you're going to put dimensions on each of the facets of the part, all right, so that other people know how big each of those little facets are. All right? We don't really want anybody to have to assume. All right? And if at all possible, what we're going to try to do is keep our dimensions inside the paper space. Okay? And we're going to try to use the most descriptive views to issue each of those dimensions from. All right? So for instance, this little leg here is 1 inch tall. All right? By putting the dimension in this front view where you can actually see how big it is, like right here, you take a little guesswork out. All right? Had that dimension not actually been in that place, like let's say it wasn't in that location, let's say we just kind of like move this one out of there and put it over here. Watch this. Look, we could put it here. But that causes a little confusion. All right? For somebody who's not really paying attention or asleep at the wheel, that one's kind of a little bit maybe harder to infer what we're actually measuring. Okay? So if you wanted to just kind of pay attention to or be careful to put dimensions on your part from the most descriptive view, that would be great. So right now, I have most of the major dimensions. I'm missing one dimension. All right? I don't know how thick the part is. So from the front view, there's no place that I could put that thickness dimension on, but back here we could say it's 1 inch thick, all right, or we could say it's 1 inch thick over here, right? When we put those two dimensions on, though, we break a new rule, all right? So the next rule is we don't want to over dimension the entire drawing, okay? So if you have dimensions that are on your drawing that are what we would call redundant, like it's the same dimension on there twice, you want to remove one of them. Okay? So I don't want you to over-dimension the part either. Because, check this out. If you were to do that, all of a sudden, this really clear, easy to understand drawing becomes kind of cluttered and confusing and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Alright? So you can very easily over-dimension a part. Okay, I don't want it over-dimensioned. So each one of the dimensions should show up one time. And we'll get some of those off there. Alright, so just enough dimensions that you fully understand how big the part's going to be. Alright, and that's pretty much it. We're going to do that for all of the individual parts for your puzzle case. Okay, so you're going to do that for each one of the parts. So you had the L block, you had the rectangle, you had the small L block, you had the square, you had the T block, and then the last one you actually do have you have the case itself. Okay? So all those should fit on that piece of paper. Couple other little things. Alright? If I want to edit some of the text on here because I do ultimately want to kind of put some information on here. First of all, it's not 2013 anymore. Okay, so we might want to change that. To get to that information, let's see. I should be able to edit my sheet. No. Let's see. Edit the definition. Okay, I can edit the definition on here. So we can do creation date. We can delete that, and you can put just a piece of text in there. We'll get rid of the scale. We'll get rid of the hour. Get rid of the number of sheets. All right. I would like for you to edit the high school, so you can put you can put high point in there. You can do H, P, R, H, S. You can put your name in there. Let's see. Title we'll leave alone. Class, this is CAD, right? Okay, so if we hit finish on that, I go back, it'll let me edit the title, so I can call this one L block for just this one piece. We go back there, so it's CAD High Point Regional High School, L block. Any other place that there's a little bit of text, you can just use your annotate tool and you can pop some text on. Alright, so you can put in that. Scale. Did you guys pick up on what scale these parts were? Alright, these are all 1:1, so they're real size. Okay? So we can put a piece of text on there, and we'll just keep that exactly the same. So this one's going to be 1:1. What's today's date?
June 28th,
2022.
Alright, and then I'll let you leave hour alone. And for sheet, like if you have a number of different sheets, which you will, you might want to label them. So we could just start this off. We'll just call this like sheet 1. Alright, so each of the different sheets that you make, we can go ahead and we can put a different number on. For right now, let's just label that as the first sheet that you're going to make. Alright, when you're done with that, File, Save. Alright, and you can go ahead and you can save up that as like the L block sheet. And we should probably actually do that. Should go save as. We'll go L block. Let's call it L block. Alright, and that's going to get saved in that same file folder. Okay, but that's the first one. Let's go to the puzzle case just like really quick. Alright, so if I were to make another sheet for the puzzle block, let's see. I'm going to go File, Open, and then I have that title block. It's in my Downloads folder. Puzzle case title block. We'll get rid of that stuff and we'll save it as a new one, okay? So we have the other one here. Here's the other one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the case on just for a second. So I'm going to go base, and we'll switch over here. So instead of a base, let's go find that case real quick. Alright, so I'm going to go back to my desktop. I think I had them on here in like puzzle folder. I should have done the same thing as you guys. We'll go to just the case for a second. So here's the case. The one thing I want to show you with the case might have to get like rotated on the sheet a little bit, alright, so that you have a better front view. Alright, so depending on how you have that thing built in the computer, you can always adjust what your front view is going to look like. Okay, and the other thing, you can adjust the scale. So at 1:1, it doesn't really fit on the sheet where you're going to be able to get other views on the piece of paper. Alright, so you do have to mess around with the scale a little bit. So the scale at full size just about fits on like a real piece of paper. Okay? To get that on there with its 3D view and with the other projected views, we should try like probably half scale, like 50% or even 25%. Okay? So if you do something like that, those should fit on there pretty easily, and then again you can just kind of project out your 3D views and create them. Okay? When you get into that though, the big thing, you just got to change over your scale. All right, so if you look at your scale, if you put that on there at 1/4, if it's on there at 1/4, just list that in the scale. Okay, so 1/4 would be 1/4 to 1. That's quarter scale. Okay? Give that a shot. Try to get started on your parts. What I put up on Classroom, just so you guys know, okay? You got, there's like a worksheet, which we kind of skipped over. It says, what is the easiest way to think of a drawing file? It's just a drawing of your parts. Why do we need to make drawing sheets? Because a lot of times, like, someone else is going to build this, and they need to be able to see what everything looks like. It says, what are the dimensions of an A-size sheet? Look up here really quick. An A-size sheet is just a regular piece of paper. So that's the drawing sheet I gave you. The first view on a drawing sheet is what? Begins with a B. Base. Yep, base view. What does a multi-view drawing typically show? It should show all the dimensions to your part. You don't have to write the answers out on this. I told you guys I was going to give it to you. What type of files can be placed on a sheet? You can put parts, you can put assemblies, and you can put that exploded view. All right, I'm going to give you the answers to this. This one is not something you have to do, so you can just get started on that. The other thing that's up here on Classroom, and this was the main thing I wanted to show you, there's a couple examples of what you're going to actually have to make. Okay, and this is like your big project here for this entire unit, right? So Chapter 2 was really 4 different lessons. It was, you had making a part, making an assembly, doing the exploded view, and now it's the drawing sheets. So, just for taking notes, that's 50% of your grade for this whole project. Okay? The last 50% is the stuff I haven't really assessed you on yet. And that's the actual project itself. So you have a whole bunch of parts that you have to put on a drawing sheet. You got to do the L block. You got to do the little L block. You got to do the little Tetris block here. All right, like the T, the rectangle, the square. You got to have each one of those on a sheet. I want you to put the case on a sheet. And then we'll circle back around and I'll show you how to do the assemblies on a drawing sheet. All right, when you're finished with all this, you're going to turn in the entire packet of pages, like the entire packet of drawings. I'm going to put a big 50-point grade on that whole thing. Okay, so this is really like kind of a big one. All right, you have time to work on this, like starting now, but if you want to see that example of what they're supposed to look like, right on Classroom, scroll down underneath here. All right, you can blow this up and you can look at it. That's what a sheet's supposed to look like. Okay, even gives you like a little example down here. Okay, so start putting your parts on a piece of paper. You got some time to work on that today. Tomorrow when you come back, I'm going to show you how to start getting like the assembly stuff together. These are actually really, really easy. They look kind of complicated, but they're not. All right, you got time to work on that stuff. If you finish early, we have an extra credit assignment for you. All right, so get going on that. I'm going to post that whole lesson that I just gave you up on Classroom so you have it. All right, it's going to be on YouTube, so you can go back through at your own pace.